Hey guys, it's M4J here and welcome back to Global Ventures here on Planet Coaster. This is the station building for Bandito Escape the West. I quite like it, it looks quite nice. There is however one change I do want to make. And I probably should have done some prep work for this really. But it involves getting rid of this part of the pathway here. Just like that. The reason is, the front of this building looks very nice and I do want to keep it, but there's actually a little pre-show kind of area that I want to build in this little extension that I'm going to create at the front here. So what I'm going to do is edit the building and I'm going to see if I can grab all of this section here, including the windows and that. That bit as well, why not? And then grab all of this, and I know there's probably a selection tool I could use, but I have tried using it in the past and it's not the most reliable tool, if I'm brutally honest. There are better ones, I'm sure. Grab the sign, grab this bit, grab all the fence. That would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Like so. And then grab all of this. I hope I can actually move this how I want to, otherwise I'm going to be very disappointed. It took me about 2 hours, I would say, to build all of this. It's another one of my sort of partial complaints, is when I see very creative people way more creative than I, building on here. And they're always going on about how long it took to create a building. And I never quite see why it takes so long. This took me 2 hours most of the time because I was sort of improvising as I was going along. And believe me, I'm not complaining that it took 2 hours. I thought it was going to take a lot longer than that, because I do judge my time frames on how long it takes everyone else. And the fact that I was constantly watching videos where people were saying it took me 16 hours to build this, and I'm sort of sitting there thinking, did it really? Or were you just sitting there dithering? Because that's what I was doing, and that's how I know it took so long, because I was just sat there constantly dithering, constantly changing my mind about how I wanted the building to look. And even now I'm changing my mind on how I want the building to look. I'm not really changing my mind. I sort of finished the building and realised there was a whole element that I wanted to add, which I forgot, which is not very good. So I am going to make amends for that right now. Now, does this stuff here count as part of the building? It does. Awesome. So I'm going to move all of this out as well, and hopefully that includes this. Yep, good. And my little animatronic bandit that's fallen asleep on the job. Okay. So if I split all that, or can I just move it? Yeah, I could just move it. That's fine. So this is now going to move out to here, I think. Let's see how that looks. How much more space does that give me? I mean, that gives me a lot more space, which is exactly what I wanted. Yeah, I quite like that. We will fix all this, don't worry. We will fix it all. Okay. So we're going to leave these doorways here, but we are sort of going to block it up behind. What's going to happen now, I also need to move this really. So I'll put this in totally the wrong spot now. Just, let's not do that. Let's do this. Like so. Yeah, I feel like it's not quite on the grid like I wanted it to be. But that's okay. There we are. Done. Okay. So next up, I'm going to remove this. And I'm also going to remove this. And this. And then I want to go no, not scenery. Building. Walls. Scenery theme. Western. And I want arches. Okay. That didn't work. Building material. Modern wood. Wood plank. Wood batten. The one I want, I think, is this one. No, it's not that one. I think it might be this one. Nope. Must be this one then. It is, but it's the wrong colour. Where's the colour of the one I want? Is it this one? No. This one. Where is this one? Okay. I need to change the grid size. There we are. And then that should slot in there. Just like that. Awesome. We'll call that done for now. I'm going to do some more path deleting. So I'm going to rebuild the exit for the ride slightly as well. I think that's quite important. But I will do that at another time. Same with the entrance. I want to rebuild the entrance completely. From about there. So we're going to keep all this. The priority queue is going to get extended as well. Because I don't think it's long enough for a coaster that's probably going to be very popular. This is the bit that's going to be changed, and I've made some mistakes there. There we go. Well, I like this little slalom area. It is going to be kept to an extent. It's just going to be changed slightly. Right, so the bit I want to start with first is in here. Now we have the queue path comes into here. This is going to be like the lobby of the bank. And then the idea is you go... Can I fit through there? I should be able to fit a path through there. And then you go round the back of the coaster. So you go underneath the overbank, or you go round the back of the overbank. And then you climb up behind the coaster into this section. And then you'll do a little slalom and then you'll go in. So you won't actually get to see any of this section until you're on the ride. I think that does better to hide it, because this drop here is supposed to be a surprise, but if you're queuing and you're standing here for like half an hour, you're going to be watching car after car go in and down this drop, and it sort of ruins the surprise, because then you're going to be expecting it. So we're going to change that. So let's start work on the foyer, shall we? So I need the floor, which is... Get rid of these again. Western. Nope. What does it come under then? Old West. That's what I want. Building set Old West. And then I want the flat roofs. Tar pitch. Is that the one I want? Yes, it is. Awesome. Right, we want the grid size to be 2 meters. Otherwise this won't fit. So we're going to have a stone floor, which is quite rare, I suppose, for Old West. But this is the bank, so it's going to be built to good standards, I would say. Built to code. Let's... This section here is going to be hidden, so you don't see the ride supports. Otherwise it won't look very nice. Nope. Try that again. I'm still sort of getting to grips with the building tool. It's still not 100% my friend. I'm getting there. That's the main thing. I am getting there. Now the downside to this part of the building is you will be able to hear the coaster through the wall, which is a little bit of a letdown. And as I'd have liked to have hidden that, but we'll have to make do. I think that's the end there. Yeah, that should do. Because then I can get rid of these walls here. And quite possibly these walls here. And then that opens up into that section. So I'm not 100% sure how the building will look once this is done. If I get rid of these bits here as well. Okay. Yeah, so that looks nicer. Something else which I built actually over here. You can see the terraforming. I've tried to make it dark inside. If I come in and show you, this is supposed to be the bank vault that you rob. So there's not much in here at the moment. There are lights. This one here and this one here that are shining a golden light, but I think it's because there's too much natural daylight in here at the moment. It doesn't really show up very well. Let me shut that. So I've got like a gold chest, I've got treasure chest, and then these rocks, they're ice rocks. They're supposed to be lit up by the lights, but it doesn't really work that well at the moment. I've also used quite futuristic looking walls here, and I've put some little explosion things here, as well as some here. I think these are smoke ones actually, and then there are explosion ones on the four corners here. So as you're standing here in the queue, every time a car comes out, there's a big explosion that follows it. Makes it look like you've blown up the vault and nicked all the gold. I think that looks quite cool. Hopefully it works. I haven't tested it. But no, I have tested it. What am I talking about? I haven't tested it with people on, and I haven't tested it with a continuous flow of cars, but I have tested it as a single car going past, and it does seem to work. It does seem to work. So I'm just waiting now to see what it would look like once we actually start running cars through properly. So I have a feeling a steady stream of cars will be the real test. Alright, we need to wall all of this up. Not that it matters that much. There, because I'm going to be putting a wall across here anyway, hiding the floor. There we are. And then I do need to put a wall around this section as well. There we are. This hides the exit as well. Which looks nice. So the entrance and hopefully the priority are going to head off down this way. Now getting the priority underneath the entrance queue is going to be the tricky bit, because I would quite like to leave the priority here as well. So at this point they're going to be running side by side. So if I move this pump, this is quite nice as well. I haven't actually seen this in operation, but this is what supposedly dug out the trench that the vault sits in. So you get to see it. It's still doing some building work. The idea is the bank's quite new. The town has just recently struck gold. So the bank's still quite new, which is why the bandits decide to rob it now and not at some point in the future. Oh, that's a bit of... I'm dropping some frames here on OBS, I've just noticed. Hang on. Let me stop and start the video again. You're going to be looking at a black screen right now, I realise. Just trying to see why it's a bit laggy. Don't actually know. Let me start again. Still lagging? Yeah, that's not good. That is not good. It's not supposed to be lagging like that. It's sort of when I don't move. In fact, no, it's not even that. Let me lower the... I realise I'm stopping it again. Let me lower the bit rate. You might be trying to capture too many, you know, stuff. Yeah. That's sort of fixed it. It's still a little bit laggy, but that's fixed it. Hopefully it holds out for the rest of the episode. I'm sure someone will tell me if it doesn't. Anyway, let's start theming the cashier windows. What was I was saying about the bank. The bank's new, which is why the bandits have decided to rob it now, while it's still new. Because that's when it's going to be most vulnerable, obviously. I think that should do it. Like that. And then we'll just put a generic wall. Now I have a feeling that would stick into the ride track if I did that, because just through this wall is... oh no, actually there is a gap there, so I could do it there. I've got to be careful that I don't impede on the existing track. It's one of the problems with this right now, is there is existing track. I'm also not convinced that this is the right height. It looks like it's the right height. I guess I've got a floor here, so I should lift this all up by half a tile. Yeah. Because the exit path is going to be on top of all this anyway. I'm thinking of putting the exit path on like a balcony that looks over the entrance, so that the theming continues even once you've once your ride is finished and you've gotten off. I suppose that works. I'm just thinking where to build the exit as well, because I'm going to put a shop. I'm doing this with all my rides, getting the realism. I'm going to put a shop here on the corner. You can see I've sort of mapped out where it's going to go. And that's going to be where you get your on-ride photo and other stuff from. You know, mugs, t-shirts, key rings, that kind of thing. So yeah, I need to also need to cover up the ride operator's booth a bit better. So I'll do that. Did I put a door on this? Yes I did. That's fine then. And then I can put this on the tippy top. And that should hide it all quite nicely. So the inside of the bank here is going to be relatively open. I say you come in, the queue's actually going to slalom this way and then round this way, almost as though you're actually queuing for one of the cashier desks, and then there'll be like a stop point. Might even be here where priority joins up actually. So then the rest of the queue is all... yeah, that could work. That could work quite well. I'll have to see about that. I don't want that roof. I want... where's the roof that I want? I don't think we have it right now. Not on this anyway. I don't want windows. Columns. I should probably build some sort of... well, I don't know actually. Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with ideas. I can definitely see this video ending up as a time lapse, or at least some of it being a time lapse. Alright, so we'll do that one like that, and then got to rotate this around like so, and then move it into place. So the exit isn't on this balcony anymore, the exit will be on an internal balcony inside the building. I think that'll do best. I actually wanted to build the track today of the ride, and here I am doing this still. So I think at this point it'll probably make more sense if I went into a bit of a mini time lapse to try and get the rest of this done. At least the front of the bank, because that's quite a nice facade like that. But we do want to theme the inside of it a bit more. We also want to extend this wall across, and we want to do something with the roof to try and cover it all up. Let me pause the game a second because that noise is starting to annoy me now. I also need to do something about this. Can I do it like this? Will that go into the wall? I think it does enough. Yeah, that's pretty good. So again, I like the theming here. I think this looks really, really nice. I kind of want to put a wall across here though, which might mess up the exit slightly. So do I move the exit? That's the next question. I don't want the exit on the same side as the entrance. I like the idea of you get off on one side, you get on the other. That always works best for me. Anyway, we're going into a time lapse. That's what we're doing now. So enjoy the time lapse, enjoy the music. I'll do a little bit of commentary over the top, I'm sure, in post, and we'll come back afterwards maybe for a few sort of snapshots, a few videos of it in action, or at least some like Q-path walkthrough, that kind of thing. So enjoy the time lapse, yeah, and I will see you in just a second. Okay, here we are in the time lapse. This is my second attempt at doing this voiceover because for some reason I decided to leave some music playing in the background while I did the first attempt, and that's an incredibly stupid thing to do. 5 years making YouTube videos and I still do cock-ups like that. But there you go. Right, so this is the main queue that I'm building right now. This is the one that snakes around the back of the building and goes into the facade at the front, which is going to be themed to look like the inside of a bank. Now I do need to do some research to find out exactly what the inside of an old western bank would have looked like, because obviously I want to make it as authentic as possible. But overall, the shell of the building I'm really happy with. The interior, you know, in my first take of this audio I was complaining about, I wish that there were more scenery pieces that I could use as the interior of the bank. I've kind of had the idea of using billboards and TV screens and sort of creating some custom images to have like posters on the wall, advertising perhaps the bank itself or other sort of destinations in the town that I'm planning on building around this area. Because I think I've mentioned this before, but each area, each zone of the park is going to have sort of a community built within it. Not a real community, I'm not saying people would actually live there, but designed to make it look as though people would actually live there. That's the main thing. So this is going to be an old western town. It's going to be designed and built to look like an old western town. So there will be a bank, there'll be a sheriff, there'll be a saloon, all the kinds of things that you would expect to find. Pretty much those three buildings, what the majority of what you found in old western towns. And then there will also be the rides themselves that are going to be built within the buildings that make up the town. So the bank is going to be probably the hub of the area, because it's quite a big thing to have a bank in a town. As I've said before, the storyline of this town is gold has been found. So there is going to be a mine train coaster built on the opposite side of the square. That's going to be how the gold was mined, and then there's going to be this area which is where the gold is stored. And I think I said this in the live build. The town itself is going to be relatively new. It's going to be like the time period is going to be set as if the town has only recently been founded, and that's why the banditos have decided that now is a prime time to actually rob the bank, because it's brand new, the security hasn't been put in yet. You know, the gold's there for the taking essentially. So they've just got a whole mountain of gold in a safe and they haven't really done much to protect it. So you can see here I'm currently building the exit path. The exit path, again, to sort of keep the illusion that the bank is real. The exit path is going to be built on the balcony overlooking the queue. So when you're in the queue, you can see people getting off of the ride. But it's obvious that they've just gotten off the ride, but it's also designed to look like they're coming out of the manager's office, or they're coming out of an office on the first floor. The way the storyline once you get inside the building works is the bandits are going to queue up in the bank as if they're just going to do a normal transaction, which is why you go around the slaloming queue as if you're queuing up in a real life bank. And then at the last second they nip off down the side through the corridors and up the stairs into the manager's office, and then from there they can get down into the safe. And that's when you board the ride vehicle, which takes you down that little drop into the basement level, which is where the safe is. It's technically yeah, I suppose back then it would be a safe. Vaults didn't really exist back in the early days of Gold Rush. So that's kind of how the storyline is going to all tie in with what I'm building on screen right now. I had a lot of problems building the exit path. I think path building on this game is a bit hit and miss, really. Sometimes it's quite simple, like if you're just building connected to the terrain, it's really simple. But when you're building and there's like scenery involved, or there's another path that's slightly within the vicinity, you can see here I'm really struggling to get this exit path in. I did some googling and I sort of looked up in the game settings if there was a way of changing whether or not path clipping was a thing, and it doesn't really seem to be the case, which is quite frustrating. I had a few goes at getting the exit path in. I'm kind of glad that I decided to plan the ride out this way and actually build all the paths before I build the ride, because that's kind of where I went wrong with Crazy Taxi. Is I built the ride first and then tried to build the queue path in. And I suppose with the queue it wasn't too bad, but with the exit, trying to do the terraforming to get the exit path just to slope up naturally to meet the main street again, it was really frustrating. You can sort of tell sometimes how frustrating I find these things. If I do a lot of off-camera work, it's mostly so that I don't have to record myself getting annoyed by the game, which does happen a lot. In fact, this is the bit where I'm googling if there's a way to do it, and I'm kind of glad that I did do that. I didn't fix the problem as such. The exit path is still a bit, it's not the best. It does slope up a little bit to then slope down. I think what the actual problem was, as well as scenery clipping, I think it's also because the queue paths are underneath the exit, and I just think that there's not quite enough headroom for the queue and the priority pass queues to pass underneath the exit. Because the queues don't pass under any other part of the ride, apart from the brake run, which I do build in a second. But even then, it sort of slopes up to go over the queue. So I hadn't really realised just how little headroom there would be with the exit. So I do sort of go ahead and change that to... well, I make the exit path slope up slightly to go over the queue and then down again. You can see here I'm sort of playing around with reshaping the queue slightly. It was mostly so I could move the priority queue. And I had a bit of a brain fart moment where I couldn't remember how to move the priority queue. What it actually is you just delete the queue and rebuild it as a queue path, and it already counts it as priority. So there you go, that's when I finally fixed the problem. And then here you can see the exit path was a lot easier to build. It just suddenly slots into place. So I have put some walls around it, and I will put a railing across it so that it looks like a balcony rather than just a weird path. It's kind of one of those things, you build a path and then you hide it. That's one thing that I've learnt from this going forward, especially when I come to build the mine train coaster in this area. I will definitely build the station building, then I'll build a little bit of track to get a vague idea of where it's going to go, and then I'm going to focus on building the ride queue and the priority line and the exit line. And you can see there I've started to build the foundations for the gift shop, which is going to be the exit of the ride. I said this in the first take, but I'll say it again. I'm not a huge fan of rides exit into gift shops. I feel like it is a bit of commercial cheating, I suppose is the fair way of saying it, because I imagine, especially if you go on big rides like Tower of Terror, you come off the ride and you go in the gift shop and it's such a welcome relief that you're probably more likely to buy something. I have a feeling that there's been some research into that, and that is why that is the case. Plus it's the fact that you've come off the ride, you want to buy some merchandise, it's right there in front of you. In fact, there is me building the brake run, and then I go and build the floor underneath it, which does go over the queue. So, as I was saying, there is a gift shop at the exit of this ride. There will be a gift shop at the exit of all my rides, for realism's sake, not because I'm a fan of it. But, you know, it exists in real life, so it really has to exist in the game as well, if I'm going to follow the realism trait. Now this conclusion to the ride is very similar to Saw the Ride. The ride building itself, the station building itself, is very similar to Saw the Ride. You start off on the first floor, you dive down to a lower level, there's a heartline roll inside that's hidden to the guests of the park. Unless you're on the ride, you wouldn't really know it was there. And also the way that I've built this final brake run, it's almost identical. You go into a brake run, you go along a little bit, and then you turn right to go back into the station building. It's kind of an accidental influence, I would say. I wasn't intending to build a Eurofighter like Saw the Ride. I have used Saw as some of the inspiration. I know that the idea of a drop inside definitely came from Saw. That's one of my favourite bits of that ride, is the drop in the dark. Because even if you have ridden the ride before, sometimes you forget it's coming, and then suddenly you go down this drop. But one other thing I have done for this brake run is the gift shop's going to be indoors. Obviously, it's going to be in a 2-story building. The station building is a 2-story building, but the bit where the brake run runs through is actually going to be left out in the open. But because of the way the building's designed, you don't notice that unless you're on the ride. But by that point, the end of a ride tends to be the bit that's themed the less. At least it is in the UK. I know, like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at the Magic Kingdom, there is that little scene with Snow White dancing with the dwarfs, and then the Wicked Witch outside, or the Wicked Queen, I think is her actual name, outside the door. That's quite extensively themed. I'd say that was an exception that proves the rule, really. Most roller coasters, especially, the brake run is the least themed section. You even look at things like Space Mountain and the Rock 'n' Roller Coaster, it tends to just be a ring of lights and that's it. You know, there's no actual props. There are sound effects, but I mean that's built into the audio anyway. So I did want to replicate that. The end of the ride, especially with Bandito, the idea is you're supposed to be escaping the bank, but because of the way the ride works, the cars do have to come back to the bank one way or another. So you do end up back where you started, which seems a bit weird for a bank robbery. So I have tried to sort of disguise that a little bit by not paying too much attention to the theming of the end of the ride, because if you try and theme it, it's almost like you're deliberately including that section. So it's a deliberate conclusion that you end up back at the bank, and then you have to try and fit that into the story, and it gets a bit confusing. So I've kind of got it as you just go into a brake run and you go back, and that's it. I might have one animatronic bandit maybe standing on the corner firing a gun, just so that there's something there. Maybe someone waiting for the next robbery, I don't know. Banks were robbed a lot back in those days, so it's fair to say that there would be a bank robbery closely followed by a bank robbery. But anyway, I'll think about that more off camera. Some of this was improvised, really. The storyline itself was pretty concrete, but trying to fit certain aspects of a theme park ride into the storyline that I had planned, it was more difficult than I thought it would be. Like I say, things like the cars have to somehow get back to the bank, or the station building, therefore they have to come back to the bank. Trying to fit that into a story was quite difficult. Some bits you do just have to gloss over and say, well, that's theme parks. You know, there are certain parts of the story that you can't fully tell because of the way that the ride's been designed. And I mean, this section here, it's nothing really to do with the ride story. This is just me trying to get the entrance paths a little bit better, really. I had this problem with trying to get the priority line from one side of the main queue to the other, because you notice inside the building the priority line is on the left hand side the whole way around. but on the outside here it's on the right hand side. So how did I get it from one side to the other? Well, the answer is not easily. You can see here that I did a little bit of terraforming. Originally I had the priority line just go over the top of the main queue. That's a really weird building to try and add into the queue. So I kind of had this idea of, well, if the priority line slopes downwards and the main queue slopes upwards, then they sort of meet in the middle, one path is over the other. So I still think that the main queue is a little bit too high, and I will go ahead and try and tweak that a little bit more, do a little bit more terraforming. But I also like this little bit that we've got here. I might have to move it a little bit further away, but that steam excavator, if I could put one of those dirt effects inside the shovel of that excavator, I could have it as it would just drop a little bit of dirt on the guests each time as it goes through. I think that would be quite cool. It's kind of a little inside joke that I make, that when I'm at a theme park I don't always go for fast pass and priority, because sometimes it's money issues, sometimes it's I just can't be bothered. I like to go on a ride when I want to go on a ride, not at the time that it tells me I can go on the ride. So sometimes I do fast pass. On a quiet day, sounds weird, but on quiet days I tend to do fast pass because you can just get one for the time that you want. On busy days, I sometimes just enjoy just standing in a queue and watching the ride. I'm a big fan of, I like theme park rides, going on them, but I do just like standing back and watching them as well, which might sound a little bit odd to some people, but it's just one of my things, I suppose, one of my little quirks. But I do get quite jealous of fast pass people, even if I know that I could do it myself and choose not to. So the idea of it's only the fast pass people that have the dirt dropped on them, it's kind of like an inside joke, it's a little bit of revenge. It's just a little thing, it's nothing serious. Hopefully no one takes offence to that, but there you go. Right, the interior of the bank. This is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. As I've already said, it's a shame that there aren't more scenery pieces that I could chuck in just to fill the gaps a little bit more. But I wanted to put these barriers in for two reasons. One, it looks nice. It makes it look like an actual queue of a bank. And also, it separates priority from standby. It's one of those things, I've witnessed it myself, where people who are in the standby queue jump over into the fast pass. Although these days, because they check your fast pass tickets now, they should have done that back in the day, to be honest, but because they check them now, people don't do it anymore. But I have seen people sort of jump over fences and things like that. Anyway, that is the end of this episode, guys. The track building and all of that stuff I will save for the next episode. You get to see the ride go through various iterations, and in fact it's been through a couple more off camera as well. So I'll save all that for next time because it is quite long. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you enjoyed the series, drop some comments down below with ideas for future episodes. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support, and until next time, I will see you soon.